I never expected him. Not like this. He stood at the front of the church, fingers dancing over the piano keys, his voice rising like smoke, thick, intoxicating. The kind of voice that didn't just ask for your attention, it took it. His lips parted around the lyrics, eyes closed, lost in the music, lost in God. And I was lost in him. His name was Elias. Worship leader, golden-haired, 28. The kind of man who carried holiness like a second skin, who made you believe, if only for a moment, that purity could be tangible. I was just a bassist in the band, fingers plucking strings in the shadows while he stood bathed in light. But sometimes, when the music swelled, his gaze would flicker to mine. Just for a second. Just long enough to make my throat tight. I told myself it was nothing. I was wrong. It happened after rehearsal. The sanctuary was empty, the last echoes of the final hymn fading into the rafters. The others had left, eager for dinners, for families, for lives that didn't revolve around chord progressions and prayer. But Elias lingered. I was packing up my bass, my back to him, when I felt it, the shift in the air. The weight of his presence, closer than it should have been. Stay. One word. That's all it took. I turned. He was right there. Close enough that I could see the faint stubble along his jaw, the flecks of green in his hazel eyes. His breath was warm, uneven. You feel it too, he murmured. Not a question. A confession. I should have stepped back. Should have laughed it off. Should have run. But I didn't. I couldn't. His hands were calloused from guitar strings, rough in a way that made my skin burn. He touched me like I was sacred, like this, whatever this was, could be worship too. Tell me to stop, he breathed against my mouth. I didn't. The first kiss was a collision. Desperate. Hungry. His lips were softer than I'd imagined, his body harder. He backed me against the piano, the discordant jangle of keys beneath us like some kind of blasphemous hymn. I'd spent years believing desire was something to suppress. Something sinful. But this felt like absolution. His hand slid under my shirt, palms hot against my ribs. I gasped, and he swallowed the sound, his tongue tracing the seam of my lips. I was drowning in him, in the salt sweat taste of his skin, the low groan vibrating in his chest when I bit his lower lip. More, I begged, my voice wrecked. He gave it to me. We didn't make it to a bed. The church carpet was rough against my knees, the air thick with the scent of him. Musky, urgent. He pushed me down, his fingers tangled in my hair, his voice ragged. Look at me. I did. And there, in the dim glow of the exit signs, Elias, holy, untouchable Elias, dropped to his knees before me. Not in prayer, in devotion. His mouth was fire and velvet, his tongue dragging over me like he was memorizing the shape of my pleasure. I choked on his name, my hips jerking, my fingers clutching at his hair. He worshipped me, not with hymns, not with scripture, but with lips and teeth and whispered filth that should have made me burn in hell. Yet all I felt was rapture. After, we lay tangled in the shadows, the weight of what we'd done pressing down like a confession. He traced my collarbone with trembling fingers. This can't happen again. I knew he was lying. Because when I kissed him once more, slow and deep, he melted into me like a man starved. And I finally understood what it meant to believe in something. We didn't talk about it. Not the next day. Not the day after. Elias led worship like nothing had changed, voice pure, hands raised, eyes fixed on some distant heaven. But now, when his gaze brushed mine, it lingered. A secret. A sin. A promise. I watched him during sermons, my throat dry. The way his Adam's apple bobbed when he swallowed. The way his shirt stretched across his shoulders when he reached for a high note. The way his lips moved around the words, Lord, have mercy. Like he was begging for something far more human than divine. And then, rehearsal again. The others left. The door locked. His hands on my waist, pressing me into the piano bench. Tell me you've thought about it, he demanded, Voice rough. I had. Every second. Every breath. I showed him instead. We met in secret. His apartment dimly lit. The air thick with the scent of old books and his cologne. A Bible sat open on the coffee table. Psalms, ironically. I shouldn't want this, he said, fingers gripping my hips like he was afraid I'd vanish. Then tell me to leave. He kissed me instead. It was different here. Slower. Hungrier. His bed creaked beneath us as he pushed me down, his body a furnace against mine. I arched into him, gasping as his teeth scraped my neck, his hands mapping my skin like he was trying to memorize every inch. You're beautiful, he murmured against my chest, the words muffled but devastating. No one had ever said that to me before. Not like this. Not like they meant it. I pulled him closer. It couldn't last. We both knew that. The church was small. Eyes were everywhere. Rumors were worse. But when Elias pressed me against the wall of the choir room, his thigh between mine, his breath hot in my ear, I can't stop. I didn't care. I didn't want him to stop. His fingers dug into my thighs as he lifted me, my back scraping against the drywall. I wrapped my legs around him, my moans swallowed by his mouth. It was messy, desperate, perfect. After, he rested his forehead against mine, his breathing ragged. We're going to hell for this, he whispered. I kissed him again. Then let's burn. The email came on a Tuesday. Another church. Another city. A job offer for Elias. Bigger congregation. Better pay. A way out. He showed it to me. His expression unreadable. I haven't said yes. I didn't answer. What could I say? Stay? For what? For stolen moments in empty rooms? For guilt disguised as passion? That night, I went to his place. We didn't speak. Just touched. Just took. His hands were rougher than usual. His kisses bordering on painful. Like he was trying to brand me. Like he knew this might be the last time. When it was over, he held me so tight it hurt. I let him. He left on a Sunday. I didn't go to the service. Couldn't bear to watch him sing, knowing his hands had been inside me just hours before. But I stood outside the church as the crowd dispersed, hidden in the shadows. He saw me. For a second, just a second, he hesitated. Then he got in his car and drove away. When it was over, he held me so tight it hurt. I let him. He left on a Sunday. I didn't go to the service. Couldn't bear to watch him sing, knowing his hands had been inside me just hours before. But I stood outside the church as the crowd dispersed, hidden in the shadows. He saw me. For a second, just a second, he hesitated. Then he got in his car and drove away. I didn't breathe until the tail lights disappeared. The ache didn't come all at once. It settled into me quietly, like fog slipping into a field, curling around everything warm and making it feel distant. I walked home the long way, through the old orchard that smelled like damp wood and cider past its prime. There were no messages waiting, no signs, just the silence he left behind, stretched out across my floor like something permanent. That night, I washed the sheets, but I could still feel the imprint of him. Not just his weight, but the memory of his breath at the back of my neck. The way he whispered my name, not like he owned it, but like he'd just discovered it. I told myself I'd be fine. And for 3 days I was. I cooked. I worked. I slept with my back to the wall, just in case the memory tried to sneak in. But on the 4th night, I found his shirt tucked behind a cushion. The dark blue one he'd worn when he arrived, soaked from the rain. I held it like a lifeline. Then I folded it, placed it in a drawer, and shut it like a secret. Megaphone, hey, if you've made it this far, don't just vanish into the night. Like this video. Share it. Subscribe. Leave a comment. Tell us where you're watching from. These stories aren't just fiction. They're reflections of all the things we almost say, and everything we never forget. If this touched something in you, don't keep it quiet. Speech balloon. The days moved forward, but I didn't. Not really. People asked me if I was seeing someone. I'd smile politely, lie easily. They never saw the way my hands curled into fists at night. Never heard the name I whispered into my pillow like a prayer I didn't believe in anymore. He didn't call, didn't write. But every Sunday, I walked by the church. And sometimes, when the music swelled through the open windows, I closed my eyes and imagined his voice threading through the hymn, laced with everything we never said. One afternoon in late November, I saw his mother outside the bakery. She looked at me, too long, then handed me a bag of cranberry muffins and said, "He still plays that song. The one you hummed." I didn't answer, but I went home and played it, once. Just once. And cried harder than I thought I still could. That night, I dreamed of him. He was barefoot, standing in the river, behind my house, his hands outstretched, dripping. I waded in, didn't speak, just touched his face. And when I woke up, his shirt was on the floor again. I hadn't taken it out. 3 weeks later, I opened the door and found him standing there like nothing had changed. Hair slightly longer, eyes quieter. A leaf stuck to his collar, like he'd walked through something wild to get to me. Neither of us spoke. He held out a tin thermos. "Chamomile and honey," he said. "You still drink that before bed?" I reached for it. Our fingers brushed. The warmth wasn't from the tea. "Why are you here?" I asked, not harshly. "Just bare." He looked down, then met my eyes with the kind of weight that only comes when someone has been carrying your name inside their ribs for too long. "I heard you stopped walking past the church," he said, "and I got scared you were done with me." I wasn't. "I know," he whispered, "but I didn't know how to come back without breaking more of what we already broke." We stood in silence again, like we were listening for something neither of us could name. A softness, a sign, a breath between storms. Then I stepped aside. He came in, not like a lover, not like a man begging forgiveness, but like someone who had returned from a place where love had no language, and was ready to learn it all again, syllable by syllable. He placed the thermos on the table and sat on the floor like he had that first night, legs crossed, shoulders curved. I joined him. The candle he made me. I hadn't lit it since he left. I reached for it now. The match struck softly. The wick took light slowly. He watched me in that glow. There was a quiet between us that hummed, not with tension, but recognition. "I didn't sleep after that night," he said. "Every pillow felt wrong. Every silence felt loud without you in it. You left anyway." I was scared, he said, of what it meant to feel that much. I nodded. It meant everything. He exhaled, like something had loosened inside him, then crawled toward me, not desperate, not fast, just certain. When his forehead met mine again, like it had the first night, I closed my eyes. He stayed like that for a long time. One hand finding mine, our palms resting together, warm and open. No rush, no performance, just presence. "I don't want to leave again," he said. "You won't have to." Later, we lay on the floor, the candle still burning low. He traced patterns into my arm, not to seduce, not to distract, but to remind me, I'm still here. I came back. We didn't kiss that night either. But I think love has its own way of happening. Quietly. Then, all at once. By morning, the candle had died. But he hadn't moved. Neither had I. The shirt I'd kept all that time. He found it folded in my drawer. He pulled it on, without a word. I watched the way it clung to him, like it remembered, too. Outside, the snow had started to fall again. He stood by the window. I came up behind him, pressed my forehead to his shoulder blade. "Sugar boo," I whispered. He turned, took my face in both hands. And this time, the kiss happened. Slow. Not searching. Just home. No music swelled. No lights flickered. Just his mouth finding mine like it was always meant to. And mine opening not in surprise, but in relief. Because sometimes the most romantic thing in the world isn't the first time. It's the time someone chooses you again with their whole chest, their whole past, and their future trembling in your hands.